Dad originally chose a trip to Hawaii with his favorite daughter over walking me down the aisle. But then, one day before the wedding, he changed his mind because of something I did. So I'm a 26-year-old woman getting married this week. There are only 5 days left until the wedding, and I'm already dealing with a lot of drama. It's all thanks to my sister and my dad. For some background, my dad has been a single father for the past 10 years since my mom passed away after a long battle with cancer when I was 16. It was incredibly tough for us, especially for me, because I felt like no one was on my side, and my sister would always boss me around. My mom treated us both equally, but my dad definitely had a soft spot for my sister. After my mom died, my sister got away with everything, while it was never that easy for me. My sister Katie is 2 years older than me, and 10 times more annoying and entitled than anyone else I know. She used to treat me like her personal servant when we were younger, and every time I protested, my dad would tell me to do what she wanted because apparently she was too fragile to do things herself. That was just an act, but my dad believed her. It helped that she had been a sickly child, but she grew out of that as she got older. However, she still pretended to be recovering from colds or other common illnesses to avoid doing chores, so I ended up doing all the housework. She would just laze around in her room doing nothing. It was incredibly annoying, but if I didn't do it, nobody else would, as my dad was always too tired after work, and I didn't want to bother him. When I turned 18 and moved out for college, things got better for me because I didn't have to live with her anymore. We didn't stay in touch after college since I didn't like her, and we never really got along. She made me do all the work and was also unpleasant to be around. She constantly took jabs at me, tried to annoy me, and was generally a pain, so I was glad to be out of the house. I missed my dad, but I wasn't going to sacrifice my peace of mind to live with my family. Some might find it weird that I got along with my dad despite his clear favoritism towards my sister, but that's how it was. We had a nice relationship until recently. I wasn't a doormat for him. I stood up for myself when he was too much to handle, and we had our fair share of fights over the years because of his bias towards Katie. But at the end of the day, he was still my father, and I would eventually make up with him. I met my fiancée, Andy, in college. After dating for almost 8 years, we decided to get married this year. We are both in good places in our careers, and it just felt like the right time. I can't say the same for my sister, though. Katie has been struggling lately and has moved back in with my dad. After graduating, my sister lived on her own for a couple of years. But last year, she left her job to join her friend in starting a jewelry business. Unfortunately, it didn't go well. They hadn't done any research or preparation and just jumped into it without much thought. From the start, the business was doomed. They quickly used up all the investment money, which they had mostly gotten from family and friends, and didn't earn much from the business. After the business failed, she had to shut it down and has been unemployed since. It's been almost 6 months, and she hasn't started looking for another job, relying completely on my dad. He had plans to retire in a few years, but now he might have to delay that because he's supporting her. We often argue about this. I think it's time she finds a job and stops relying on our aging dad because of one failed venture. She needs to take action and improve her situation. However, my dad believes she needs time to emotionally recover before taking on something new. We have different views on this, so we avoid discussing it to prevent fights. Additionally, I got engaged just weeks after she closed her business. My dad thinks her sadness is partly because I'm doing well, while she struggles to even get out of bed most days. I know she's jealous because she often shares on social media about her difficulties, seemingly for attention. Whenever someone responds to her posts, which look like cries for help, she talks about how well I'm doing and claims that she deserves everything I have, not me. She says I got ahead by manipulating and stepping on others, which isn't true. I've worked hard for what I have, while she prefers playing the victim. There was one unfortunate event recently that wasn't her fault. 3 weeks ago, her cat, which she had for nearly 15 years, died. She was very close to it and deeply affected by the loss. My dad mentioned how bad she was hurting, and I felt genuinely sorry for her. I thought about reaching out but didn't want to come off as insincere, so I asked my dad to pass along my condolences. She's been quite depressed, and losing her cat made things worse. She stopped eating for days, and my dad had to beg her to get out of bed and eat. It was a pitiful situation, and I felt sorry for both of them. However, with my wedding just a few weeks away, I was wrapped up in my own preparations. I decided not to get too involved in what was happening with her. I stayed in contact with my dad and tried to comfort him when he got upset about Katie's behavior. That was all I really could do. I didn't expect any issues from this, but a few days ago, my dad told me he wouldn't be able to walk me down the aisle on my wedding day. I had assumed he would be the one to do it, and I had just formally asked him the day before his call. I thought my dad would say yes right away when I asked him to walk me down the aisle, but instead, he said he needed time to think. The next day, he called to decline, and his reason shocked me. He explained that Katie had cremated her cat a few weeks earlier and now wanted to go to Hawaii to scatter the ashes on the beach. She had fond memories of the place from a road trip with her cat and friends a few years ago. The day of my wedding was exactly 1 month after her cat's death, and she planned to scatter the ashes then. So, not only did my dad refuse to walk me down the aisle, but he also said he wouldn't be able to attend my wedding at all. He apologized and said he wanted to make it up to me later, but he felt he had to go with Katie since this was the first time in weeks she had shown interest in doing something and leaving the house. She specifically asked him to come for emotional support. I was furious but tried to stay calm. I suggested that perhaps one of her friends could go with her, or maybe she could do it a day after my wedding so he could attend. I wanted at least one parent at my wedding. But my dad said she was firm on her plans, and even though he suggested the same alternatives because he wanted to be at my wedding, she got upset. She accused him of not caring about her feelings. She argued that on my wedding day, I would have many people around who cared about me, but she only had our father. She felt she should be the priority right now because she was going through a tough time. When my dad agreed with her, saying she should be the priority given her situation, I was heartbroken. I told him it felt like she's always been his priority, so I wasn't surprised he was choosing to miss my wedding to be with her. I didn't give my dad a chance to respond. I just hung up and blocked him on all platforms. I was really upset. And when I explained everything to Andy, he seemed to understand my feelings. I spent the next 2 days crying, but then I decided to take a stand and do something that would really upset my father. Knowing that my sister was trying to provoke me, I thought the best response would be to provoke them back. So instead of continuing to be upset, I chose to ask my uncle to walk me down the aisle. My uncle is my dad's twin brother, and they absolutely despise each other. Their rivalry has been evident since I was young. They always tried to outdo each other at family events, making things uncomfortable for everyone else. My grandparents did their best to make them stop, but their animosity was too strong. After my mom died, my dad would avoid any event where he knew my uncle would be. I personally had no issues with my uncle and could relate to him, as I knew what it was like to have a sibling rivalry. Although we weren't very close, driven by my anger after the call with my dad, I went out of my way to ask my uncle to walk me down the aisle. He was surprised and hesitated, saying he didn't think we were close enough for such a role. But I explained to him that this was to upset my dad because of his actions. After that, I didn't need any more convincing. He was all in as soon as he realized it would annoy my dad. My uncle actually laughed when I asked him if he wanted to be part of this. Even in their 50s, he said he wouldn't miss a chance to embarrass his brother. Amen to that, haha. We decided to make a post about it, knowing it would definitely reach my dad. That evening, I posted how grateful I was to my uncle for agreeing to walk me down the aisle. Within hours, my dad called me. I had unblocked him just for that, and he immediately expressed how upset he was that I had involved my uncle and was replacing him with that man. He said he would convince Katie to postpone the ash scattering, but now all I had to do was let him walk me down the aisle, as it would be embarrassing for him if my uncle did it while he was still around. I told him he had his chance and chose Katie over me. Now, I was just returning the favor. He became really upset and called me petty and immature, and I agreed. Yes, I was being both, but that only made him more upset. By the end of the call, he was in tears, saying he never expected me to act this way, especially since he was trying to support my depressed sister, who was going through a tougher time than I was. He told me I had no empathy and was being downright evil because my sister had lost everything, and I couldn't even let her have my dad for one day. Now, I feel somewhat insensitive because he was right about my sister's situation. So I need your advice. Should I apologize to my dad? I had asked my uncle to walk me down the aisle after my dad chose to accompany my sister to Hawaii on my wedding day. Update. With only 2 days left until the wedding, I've decided to walk down the aisle alone. Instead of dealing with all this drama, it feels more fitting to just walk by myself realizing that ultimately I'm on my own. I talked to my uncle, and since we got the reaction we wanted from my dad, he was okay with just attending as a guest, which was the original plan. He was initially hesitant about walking me down the aisle anyway. I also reached out to my father, but I didn't call him to avoid another heated conversation. So, I just left him a message saying he was welcome at the wedding if he wanted to be there, but he didn't need to walk me down the aisle. I also said that if he preferred to go to Hawaii with Katie, that was his choice too. However, I regretfully added that if he made that choice, I would have to cut ties with him permanently. He's had many chances to show that I'm a priority, but he's failed every time. Now, I can no longer tolerate this disrespect. I want to get married and be happy on my wedding day. I have worried too much about what he thinks and how others feel about my decisions. It's been a huge waste of time since he has never cared about how I feel. If he did, he wouldn't have dropped that bomb on me just days before my wedding. If he cared, he would have apologized after I sent that message, but he hasn't even replied. I've talked to Andy, and he agrees this is the right decision. With only a few days to go, we still haven't sorted things out with my dad. At this point, I don't think I have any other option. Update. Hey! So, first things first. I got married yesterday. I can't believe it. I'm actually married now with a wedding band alongside my engagement ring. It feels surreal, and I'm so happy right now. I need to update you guys, as I kind of ranted and left in the last one. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, my dad didn't attend the wedding. Yep, he chose to go to Hawaii with my sister to scatter her cat's ashes instead, which is quite a choice over attending your other daughter's wedding. I don't want to dwell on that because some people criticized me for not taking my sister's depression seriously. I do feel bad for her. Depression is awful, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, which ironically is Katie, but it wasn't depression that made her do this. It was her constant need to go against me and be the center of attention that led her to choose scattering her cat's ashes in Hawaii on my wedding day. She could have waited a couple of days or done it earlier, but she chose my wedding day. I don't think it's a coincidence. She has always had something against me, so I refuse to believe she did this just because she was depressed. Depression can explain her actions, but it's not an excuse. I'm not making fun of her, but I won't let her off easy just because she's struggling. As for my dad, he has let me down for the umpteenth time, and this time, I won't forgive him. It's going to be hard going through life without any parents in my corner. But let's be real. He has never truly been in my corner. For him, life has always been about Katie, and I see that clearly now. I was a fool to think things could ever change. He chose not to attend my wedding, and he was very clever about it. He didn't let me know until after the ceremony. Until then, I was still confused about whether he would attend. I had left him a message, but he didn't reply. I kept checking my phone, but after I walked down the aisle and everything was done, I realized he wasn't coming. Then he texted me, saying he was in Hawaii with Katie and chose to attend the scattering of the ashes because Katie needed him more than I did. She was more emotionally dependent on him, and he hoped I would understand. His message might have meant something if he hadn't also said my petty behavior with my uncle had put him off, and that it was best for us to stay apart for a while. That was another reason he didn't attend. I won't deny it was petty, but honestly, I did it because I always felt ignored after my mom passed away. I won't pretend it wasn't immature, but what else could I have done? I just wanted to do something to piss him off to see if he actually cared. Maybe he did, but not enough to show up for me. Anyway, his message annoyed me, and it was my wedding day, so I wanted to be happy. I blocked him and moved on with my day. He had already chosen not to come, so sending a message was redundant. People did ask why my father and sister were absent from the wedding, and I chose to be honest and told them the real reason. I figured it reflected poorly on them, not me, so I had no reason to hide anything. Most people were speechless. Others found it quite hilarious in a sad way. Now the entire family knows my dad skipped my wedding to go to Hawaii with Katie to scatter her cat's ashes. He couldn't spare one single day for me, and that is his biggest failure as a father, I think. But I still had a fun time, and nothing can change that. My wedding day is still the best day of my life so far. I get to spend the rest of my life with the man I love the most, and I've decided he will be my only family from now on. Update. It's been a week since my wedding, and it still feels great to say that. Anyway, Andy and I are supposed to go on our honeymoon in a couple of days, But of course, my dad and Katie couldn't stand to see me happy, so they decided now is the perfect time to confront me about what I told people at the wedding about why they weren't there. 3 days ago, Katie texted me. I hadn't blocked her, just my father, but after reading her text, I felt like blocking her too, because it was so annoying that she felt she had the moral high ground. For the record, the only reason I haven't blocked her yet is because if something happens to my father, I want to know about it. Despite our differences, I'm sure she would still inform me in case of an accident or illness. That's literally the only reason I've kept her unblocked. I know most people would advise me to go no contact, but I can't do that. Just because my dad has been a terrible father doesn't mean I have to be a terrible daughter. This might not make sense to a lot of people, but these are my morals, and I'm sticking to them. So I'd appreciate it if people didn't comment on this. Now about the message she sent me. She said, "Hey, we just got back from Hawaii, and many relatives have contacted us. They think we were wrong to choose your wedding day to scatter my cat's ashes. I'm not surprised you told everyone and portrayed us negatively, but I'm disappointed you're still picking on me, even though I'm going through a tough time. I really wish you hadn't talked badly about me and Dad because we're family. And you, of all people, should understand how hard it is to lose a loved one. I really hoped you would have more compassion for me, but clearly, that's not the case. Dad has noticed you blocked him, and he's very upset, so I think you should undo that. Honestly, you need to be more thoughtful towards us. You can't just go through life thinking only about yourself and expect people to be okay with it. I hope you understand and apologize. Even if you don't, I won't be surprised because if you're still hating on me now, I can't expect much from you." The tone of her message really pissed me off, and the content was even worse. I don't even want to talk about it because I might end up cursing her out. It was so pretentious and holier than thou that I wanted to block her, but after thinking it over, I decided to reply. Here's what I wrote. "Hey Katie, I did tell our relatives why you and Dad weren't at the wedding because I'm not a liar. By not showing up, you put yourselves in that position. It's unfair to expect me to cover for you, especially since both of you have been unkind to me. You couldn't think of me on my wedding day and put me first just for one day, so I don't think I have anything to apologize for. If Dad is upset about being blocked, he should have thought things through earlier. I've made up my mind and don't want any contact with either of you, so please don't contact me again. Unless it's an emergency, then you can text or call me. But unless there is an urgent situation, I really wish you wouldn't contact me at all since I have no interest in speaking to either you or Dad. Both of you have hurt me a lot in the past few years, and I agree with Dad that it's best if we spend some time apart for now. I am a married woman now, and I want to spend the next few years enjoying my life with my husband. Right now, he is the only family I have. I wish you both all the very best in your lives. Goodbye." After showing it to Andy, I sent that message, and she replied a couple of minutes ago. She said she would respect my wishes and added that my dad was still very upset about my decision not to speak to them, but I can't help that. They brought this on themselves. I know Katie is happy she won't have to speak to me, and if my dad is really that upset, well, too bad because like I said, it's his own fault. Anyway, I'm just gonna try and enjoy my honeymoon now. We've been planning this for a long time, and I deserve to have fun. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We love hearing from you, so leave a comment below with your thoughts and any suggestions for future videos. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Join our community and be part of the conversation. Your support means the world to us.